Okay, so today we're diving into a book by Alan Watts called The Wisdom of Insecurity. Now, this was written all the way back in 1951, but honestly, it feels like it could have been written this morning. It's an incredible guide for navigating our modern age of anxiety, and its message just speaks directly to so many of our struggles right now. So let's just jump right in with Watts' most famous idea, what he called the backwards law. This one concept is pretty much the master key to his entire philosophy. The idea is that our desperate, forceful efforts to feel good often have the exact opposite effect. The harder you try to force yourself to be happy, the more stressed and unhappy you become. And this leads us to the central mystery that Watts really unpacks in the book. Our constant, frantic search for psychological and spiritual security is the very thing that makes us feel so deeply insecure. The more we try to lock everything down and secure ourselves against the future, the more we just amplify our anxiety in the present. And look, this isn't just some clever turn of phrase. For Watts, this was like a fundamental law of how our minds work. I mean, think about it. We have this deep-seated need to feel safe and certain, but we live in a world that is, by its very nature, unpredictable and uncertain. And that mismatch, well, that's the source code for so much of our modern frustration. So the big question is, why are we all caught in this trap? To really get to the bottom of it, we have to look at how our culture has taught us to live. Watts argues that we're basically conditioned from birth to chase a future that, by definition, can never ever arrive. We're always told to sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. We put up with jobs we don't like for the promise of a happy retirement way down the line. We rush through our days just trying to get to the good part, maybe the weekend. We get so wrapped up in planning for the future that we're completely absent from the only reality we ever actually have, which is right now. And this slide just lays out that conflict perfectly. Our culture promises us everything tomorrow if we just work hard enough today. But the reality of that constant chase is a cycle of dissatisfaction and anxiety now. We're basically living for a promise that can never be cashed in the present moment. This quote from Watts just nails the futility of it all. He says, if happiness always depends on something expected in the future, we are chasing a will-o'-the-wisp that ever eludes our grasp. We're pursuing a phantom, a ghost we can never catch, because the second we get there, our mind has already moved the goalpost further down the field. The chase itself becomes the trap. All right, so where does all this frantic chasing come from? What's the real root of it? Watts drills down deep and identifies it as a core illusion. This feeling of a separate self. That little voice inside our heads we call I, that we're convinced is the real us. We have this deep conviction that there's a permanent thinker behind our thoughts, a little CEO in our head who's feeling our feelings. Watts argues this is the central illusion at driving our anxiety. We think this I is who we are, and so we spend our entire lives trying to protect it, to satisfy it, to make it secure. But let's actually try to deconstruct this for ourselves. Right now, as you're experiencing a feeling, any feeling at all, can you actually find a separate you that is doing the feeling, or is there just the feeling itself? Or how about your thoughts? Try for a second to find the thinker that exists apart from the stream of thoughts just flowing through your mind. When you really look for this thinker, what do you actually find? Isn't it just another thought? And this leads us to Watts' really profound conclusion. There is no separate thinker. There's no permanent feeler or central experiencer. There's just thinking, feeling, and experiencing happening. That I we work so hard to secure, it's a ghost. It's a useful fiction created by our memories and our language, but it's not a solid thing. And that's why this image of Ouroboros is so perfect. It shows the sheer absurdity of this inner conflict. The I trying to control or escape from the me is just one part of your own organism fighting another part of itself. It's a totally exhausting and completely unwinnable civil war. Okay, so if this separate self, this I, is an illusion, then what's left? Where do we go from here? The solution, Watts says, isn't some new technique or a system you have to believe in. It's a fundamental, radical shift in how we perceive everything. This shift happens through what we can call awareness. But here's the crucial part. Awareness isn't something you actively do. It's not another project for your mind to manage. It's actually the opposite. It's the simple act of dropping resistance, dropping all the labels, and just allowing the present moment, with all its sights and sounds and feelings, to be exactly what it is. To get there, Watts makes this incredibly important distinction between belief and faith. Belief, he says, is all about clinging to a fixed idea, a doctrine, something to make you feel secure. But true faith, it's the total opposite. It's the courage to let go of all our certainties and to open ourselves completely to reality, just as it is, whatever it might be. As Watts puts it so simply and beautifully, belief clings, but faith lets go. Let that sink in for a second. The path to sanity, he argues, doesn't require us to grip our ideas even tighter. It actually requires the deep trust to release our grip entirely. He uses this wonderful analogy of water. If you try to scoop up a flowing river in a bucket, you don't have a river anymore. You just have a bucket of stagnant water. To truly experience the aliveness and dynamism of life, you have to let go and just allow it to flow. So, what does this liberation actually look like in practice? It's not about becoming numb or detached from everything. Far from it. It's about a full, dynamic, even joyful participation in the flow of life itself. To illustrate this, Watts asks us to picture a pine tree and a willow in a heavy snowstorm. The rigid pine tree fights the snow, right? It accumulates all that weight, and eventually its branches crack and snap. But the supple willow, it yields. It allows the snow to slide right off, and it springs back, totally unharmed. True strength isn't in rigid resistance, it's in flexibility. And this really is the ultimate conclusion. We find peace not by standing on the riverbank trying to analyze or control the water, but by plunging right in. As Watts says, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And so we'll end on that provocative question, a thought for you to reflect on in your own life. Are you swimming with the constant flow of your experience? Or are you still fighting it, still trying to capture and control it in a bucket? According to Watts, the answer to that question could change absolutely everything.